talked about being diagnosed with breast cancer. This is another part of the realness of marriage and relationships that, we say doing life, and a lot of times we think of doing life meaning having kids and going on vacation and all the good times. But if we're honest, most of us who are married or think about being married, it's always the good, right? How are you dealing when the not so good happens? Or in this season, their spouses are getting COVID and they're isolated. How do you stick and stay through a time where you don't got your boo thing under your arm and y'all not able to have sex every other night or whenever, and all those things that we feel like make a marriage? Can you talk a little bit about your experience with not necessarily your breast cancer diagnosis, but that season and what your marriage was like? How did you and your spouse make it through that? And maybe some advice for someone who might be dealing with the hard parts of marriage.
Okay. You summed it up when you said the hard parts of marriage. Oftentimes we think about the good parts. One of the things that helped us make it through, believe it or not, is we just continued with some of the same routines and some of the same things we've done. And it was funny that you mentioned it because I had multiple surgeries, and I remember before one surgery, the doctor came in and my husband was waiting with me. And he was making me laugh, and she said, "You guys are always laughing." And I said, "Well, he makes me laugh." But we were able to laugh through things. You know, I lost all of my hair, I lost my eyebrows. My husband would make jokes about it, and not in a disparaging way, don't get me wrong, but just in a way to help me keep my spirits up. I remember I kept routines. One of them was I will always cook, as I always have. But even when I wasn't physically up to it, I remember I would, on the days of chemo, I would make baked chicken. And I remember one week he came in and I had made baked chicken, but I put barbecue sauce on it because that chemo round I felt a little more energy. And he's like, "Oh, ooh, we got barbecue," and we laugh about it now. Don't get me wrong, but for someone like myself who prides themselves on, being a master in the kitchen, just having the strength for 5 minutes to prepare and put a chicken in the oven was a major feat. But I appreciated him being patient enough to eat that baked chicken every time I got chemo every other week because he recognized that that was important to me to feel valued, to feel important. And I recognized that through that journey, that's part of marriage. Being there, we support our kids quite often. We're always there. "Oh, yeah, baby, go ahead. I'm going to your game. I'm going to this. I'm showing up for graduation." But oftentimes, like Latasha talked about, in our relationships, we don't always give that support. And so that was one of the things that experience taught me is that making an investment in yourself, not just emotionally, but sometimes even physically, that for better or for worse. There were times when my body was that of a 75, 80-year-old. I could barely move. I might have to have assistance. But the one thing that made me appreciate him later was that he never complained and he was always supportive. And so that part really strengthened our marriage, believe it or not. But at the same time, I understand when people say how oftentimes people go through those experiences and the marriage is dissolved. I can understand because you do have to have a strong foundation to get through those troubling times. Sometimes, if it's not strong enough, things might fall apart.
Wow.